Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from one of Spain's most revered saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, a spirited doctor of the Church. Join me, Amy Thomas, once a week as we read from Saint Teresa's book, The Interior Castle. Hello, Catholic pilgrims. Welcome back for another short reading from The Interior Castle. In the earlier podcasts, I encouraged you to start forming a mental picture of the castle, as St. Teresa describes it for us. I always find it helpful to visualize things, but I realized that we haven't talked about the mental image for a while, and so I wanted to check in with what is going on, at least in my mind, and maybe you've had similar thoughts. Now, we talked about how the first couple of mansions were filled with vipers and obstacles. We formed this castle in our mind, which is also like a tree. We talked about Lord of the Rings quite a bit. But to me, in my mind, the first mansions are made of stone walls. It's cold. There's no comfort around. It's just a hard, cold place where we have to fight our way through. It's in this place where we are faced with ourselves and we have to really work to fight off those things that majorly hold us back from advancing in our faith life. And there's the serpents that are lurking around, intent on lashing out and biting us. You know, the devil is on full alert and coming after us in ideas to get us to retreat, to get us to run out of the castle and go across the drawbridge, which is covering the moat full of crocodiles, and then back to just the superficial embrace of the world. But as we've read, if we can persevere, we can get into the third mansion, which is where we are now. But for me, the third mansion is like an area of comfort. We've come through the dark tunnels of the lower parts of the castle, and now we are entering into a space that is much more livable, more enjoyable, more comfortable. And it's an area we like because it's so much nicer after what we've just come through. Remember, this is the place where St. Teresa says that people doing a good job of living out their faith life reside, like the rich young man that comes to Jesus. But as we are hanging out in this mansion, something odd can happen. It can become too easy, too comfortable. And when things become too comfortable and too easy and too predictable, we can experience a time of aridity, of dryness. But once we are lounging around in this area, aware of the dryness, we struggle to go to the next step because it's hard for us to accept a challenge. And the reason it's hard is because we feel like we're doing pretty good. And why upset the cart? Our inertia is one of stagnation. So I picture the third mansion as having cushions around and lounge chairs where the danger is that we are lulled to sleep or slip into comfortable numbness. Or, as St. Teresa will tell us, it's a place where we get weary, and that's what we will discuss after our reading today. So we are reading from the Third Mansion, chapter 2, numbers 10 through 14. A word first from our sponsor, Chrism Press. Are you a fan of mystery and Catholic fiction? Then you don't want to miss The City Mother by Maya Sinha. Chrism Press presents this gripping story of a small-town reporter who discovers the reality of evil in a faraway city. Confined to a lonely world with a toddler, Karen Nielsen's view of reality is altered by sleeplessness, isolation, and postpartum hormones. As she seeks guidance from therapy, books, films, and even the saints, she discovers something sinister creeping ever closer. The City Mother is an insightful entry to the Catholic fiction genre that illuminates the unseen operations of grace and evil in a secular age. Go to chrismpress.com patreon.com/shop to purchase your copy. You can also find the link in the show notes and use code PILGRIM15 to get 15% off your first order. And now it's time to read numbers 10 through 14. We seem to ourselves to be making progress, yet we become weary. For believe me, we are walking through a mist. It will be fortunate if we do not lose ourselves. Do you think, my daughters, if we could travel from one country to another in 8 days, that it would be well to spend a year on the journey through wind, snow, and inundations, and over bad roads? Would it not be better to get it over at once, for it is full of dangers and serpents? Oh, how many striking instances could I give you of this? God grant that I have passed beyond this state myself. Often I think I have not. All things obstruct us while prudence rules our actions. We are afraid of everything, and therefore fear to make progress, as if we could reach the inner chambers while others make the journey for us. As this is impossible, sisters, for the love of God, let us exert ourselves and leave our reason and our fears in His hands, paying no attention to the weaknesses of nature which might retard us. Let our superiors, to whom the charge belongs, look after our bodies. Let our only care be to hasten to our Lord's presence. For though there are few or no indulgences to be obtained here, yet regard for health might mislead us, and it would be none the better for our care, as I know well. I know too that our bodies are not the chief factors in the work we have before us. They are accessory. Extreme humility is the principal point. It is the want of this, I believe, that stops people's progress. It may seem that we have made but little way. We should believe that is the case, and that our sisters are advancing much more rapidly than we are. Not only should we wish others to consider us the worst of all, we should endeavor to make them think so. If we act in this manner, our soul will do well. Otherwise, we shall make no progress and shall always remain the prey to 1,000 troubles and miseries. The way will be difficult and wearisome without self-renunciation, weighed down as we are by the burden and frailties of human nature, which are no longer felt in the more interior mansions. In these third mansions, the Lord never fails to repay our services, both as a just and even as a merciful God, who always bestows on us far more than we deserve, giving us greater happiness than could be obtained from any earthly pleasures and amusements. I think He grants few consolations here, except perhaps occasionally to entice us to prepare ourselves to enter the last mansions by showing us their contents. There may appear to you to be no difference except in name between sensible devotion and consolations, and you may ask why I distinguish them. I think there is a very great difference, but I may be mistaken. This will be best explained while writing of the fourth mansion, which comes next, when I must speak of the consolations received there from our Lord. The subject may appear futile, yet may prove useful by urging souls who know what each mansion contains to strive to enter the best. It will solace those whom God has advanced so far. Others who thought they had reached the summit will be abashed. Yet if they are humble, they will be led to thank God. Like I said in the beginning, the third mansion to me is a place where we battle an unlikely temptation. The temptation to overcome comfort and the status quo. And what's weird about it is that we are doing pretty good in our faith life. Like I talked about in the beginning, like we're doing all the right things like the rich young man, but there's still a little more to do. But because we're doing a lot of the right things, we think we're okay, we think we're comfortable. And another temptation is to overcome being too cautious in our faith life. And what do I mean by too cautious? Well, St. Teresa says, quote, all things obstruct us while prudence rules our actions. We are afraid of everything and therefore fear to make progress, as if we could reach the inner chambers while others make the journey for us." Unquote. Now, we all know that prudence is a virtue. So what does St. Teresa mean here when she says that prudence rules our actions, but she's not saying it in a positive way? Now, definitely prudence is a virtue, but what it looks like she's saying is sometimes we can take it too far in that we don't want to do anything too risky in our faith life. And when I say too risky, I don't mean stupid, pointless risks. I mean the kind of risk where we take a leap of faith. We put our trust in God and we say yes to doing what He is asking us to do. Taking a chance, like Mary, our mother, when she said yes to being the mother of God. She didn't know all that that would entail, but she said yes anyway, trusting that God would guide her along the path. Now, St. Teresa says we should, quote, "leave our reason and our fears in His hands, paying no attention to the weaknesses of nature which might retard us," unquote. And what she's urging here is for us to get out of our comfort zone. Remember, that's the problem with the third mansion. We can get stuck doing the right thing, but the same thing, and then becoming too comfortable. We don't want to maybe take on a challenge of volunteering at church because, that will involve time and effort. And, we don't want to maybe donate more money because we'd rather go on a big trip, or we don't want to stop watching the popular TV show because even though it's not really good for us, we really like it and it's something to talk about with people at work. Or, we don't want to read a spiritual book that we know is good for us because, we're more interested in some of the mindless entertainment over here. Or we don't want to use our gifts or talents because we might fail. But here's the thing. Part of the reason that we don't want to say yes to the next step in our spiritual life is because we can't imagine that we'll experience more happiness. In fact, we worry that we will experience less. And so we're trying to be prudent and keep everything just right, just so. We like the space that we're in. It's not asking too much of us, but it's asking just enough so that we feel like we're doing a good job. But why? Why do we worry that we will experience less happiness? And I think it's because it takes away from our me time or the temporal pleasures that make us feel happy in the moment. It could potentially take that away. And so there isn't a full trust in God. Now, trust me when I say this is something I definitely struggle with as well. I'm not just trying to preach to those of you listening and lecture. This is for me as well. I can see this tendency in myself. But if we don't do what we are created for, if we don't serve, if we don't stretch and grow ourselves, if we don't accept the challenges that God gives us, we won't ever be truly happy in the way that God intends us to be. And we're going to miss out on so much. St. Teresa shares this when she says, quote, "In these third mansions, the Lord never fails to repay our services, both as a just and even as a merciful God, who always bestows on us far more than we deserve, giving us greater happiness than could be obtained from any earthly pleasures and amusements." Unquote. God will bless our trying. He will bless us saying yes to that next step. And He will give us more happiness than we could possibly deserve if we keep pursuing Him and continuing to find ways to draw closer to Him through submitting to His will. The young rich man, he didn't trust that Jesus would increase his happiness if he got rid of all his earthly things. And so we must be careful to not fall into that same line of thinking. The last thing I want to point out is where St. Teresa says, "It will solace those who God has advanced so far. Others who thought they reached the summit will be abashed. Yet if they are humble, they will be led to thank God." What she's saying is that if you continue to advance through the castle, going through the different mansions, God will give you solace. But if you get into one mansion and it's not the principal chamber, and you think, hey, I've reached the summit, you're probably going to be embarrassed at some point to realize that you haven't made it yet. You haven't made it to the principal chamber. You haven't gotten all the way through the castle. There's still more to do. But, she says, if you overcome that embarrassment, and I think when you look back in hindsight, you will thank God for the opportunity to go further, for that opportunity to increase your joy, to purify your soul, and to grow in love for Him. So don't grow weary. I know that's easy to say, hard to do, but it's important to not get comfortable, because God has a lot more to show you. And so if there's something on your mind right now that you're thinking of where you feel like God has been nudging you to maybe say yes to something, and you've been overly prudent and been holding back because, like I said, you don't want to upset things. You don't want to get out of the comfort zone. It kind of scares you. The risk kind of scares you. Pray about that and ask God to give you the graces to say yes to what He's asking you to do. So that is all for this week, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here soon. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.